Hello, and welcome to Disruptive Sales and Marketing. I'm your host, Mona Hilton, and I'm so glad you joined me today. You know, disruption is a personal quest or journey that I have been on for some time now. Today, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my perspective on the notion of disruption, how it might come, disguised sometimes, how to look for it, and I'd like to share with you what we have done as a company to disrupt the sales and marketing or CRM industry. My hope, of course, is to inspire and to challenge you to find opportunities that you can use to disrupt your world. So let's start with the question I posed in my email to you. What do Uber, Airbnb, and Amazon all have in common? You already know the answer. They have managed to completely disrupt their entire industries. You know, about 4 or 5 years ago or so, you never heard the word disruptive. And it's funny how nowadays everything and every industry is being quote unquote disrupted. Businesses that have been done the same way for hundreds of years with little or no change are being disrupted. How you rent a vacation home, everything has been flipped on its ear. On the one hand, you find yourself wondering if all this disruption is necessary. Is it even good? Is it positive? Are we moving in the right direction? But at the same time, I found myself wondering what took so long for someone to think outside the box and change an industry that clearly needed to be reimagined. It's really kind of hard to pinpoint where it all began. Was it Amazon? List? There are to disrupt bread, Starbucks, people like that were early disruptors in their own right. Now, some of the most infamous disrupt doing things, letting all of your employees, something as simple as that little change has the power to start a new trend, make an impact, and even become your corporate signature. And keep in mind, disruption hasn't just been limited to online apps either. Traditional brick and mortar businesses are being disrupted just as much. Wawa has really changed a convenience store into an experience. I know many people, including my daughter, who loves to go to Wawa, and I love their coffee. Wayfair has changed furniture shopping for so many people because it ships for free. So what is all this disruption about? How do you define it or explain it or wrap your brain around the essence of disruption? Disruption essentially causes a transformation, a paradigm shift, a whole new lens to look at things through. Or perhaps it's a whole new lens that you create for others to see through. Disruption reinvents the business model, your customers' access to your business, your service, your product, and the speed and agility of the delivery mechanism. In other words, how fast and easy it is to do business with you. But most significantly, in my personal opinion, disruption changes the customer experience, how your customers do business with you, how they interact with you, and how they experience your products and services. Oftentimes, a disruption realigns the experience customers have to match their new expectations, their new mindset, and sometimes that includes previously unrealistic expectations of what people and technology should be able to do. So, for example, what I mean by that is look at the evolution of the telephone. Who could have predicted in 1876 when Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, what it would look like today, how it would evolve, how it would change? He certainly didn't expect that, and that was definitely an unrealistic expectation at his time. Can you imagine what the telephone is going to look like in the next 50 years? Probably be embedded in us somehow. But transformational change is often considered disruptive. The disruptive idea isn't always accepted at first. In fact, it's often met with skepticism and even downright opposition. You remember when the internet first came out, there were really famous experts who said the internet is a fad and it wouldn't last. Ironically, those experts, they're all gone. But the internet, it's still here, bigger and stronger than ever. In fact, we're using it right now. In other cases, disruptive innovation happens by accident. People didn't really realize what they were creating, or they just had a desperate need and they were trying to solve it. So disruption comes across early as a crazy idea. Nobody in their right mind thinks it's a good idea. So take, for example, the story of Airbnb. I don't know if you've ever used Airbnb, but in 2007, 10 years ago, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were broke. They were looking to raise money to make their rent in San Francisco. So they came up with this idea and decided to rent out air mattresses in their apartment to attendees of a design conference because all the hotels in the area were booked. They called their service Air Bed and Breakfast. In just a few years, this small experiment has created the hotel industry disruptor Airbnb. The privately held company, with a third co-founder, Nathan, now lists more than 3 million lodgings in nearly 200 countries. It is worth $31 billion, with a B, more than Hilton and Wyndham combined, and it's actually closing in on Marriott. Think about that for a second. That'll blow your mind. Can you imagine what some of those early conversations between Joe and Brian and Nathan, the founders of Airbnb, what they sound like? What would happen if we rented out air mattresses in our apartment to these conference goers? You know what? What if people could rent out their own homes for a short stay? Someone might have said, what about renting out just a room? Or what if there was a website you could go to find a rental in a city or area? Can you imagine the obstacles they came up against? I mean, what about privacy? What about security and liability if someone gets murdered? In fact, they met with, or they tried to meet with potential investors in the early days, and none of them would even meet with them. They told them they were crazy to their face. One investor said, what if somebody gets murdered in one of your B&Bs? I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. You know, imagine thinking about allowing perfect strangers to sleep in your home, sometimes when you're there. How would you vet them? Would it even be safe? It's totally crazy. I mean, even the founders didn't anticipate that it would grow. Joe said he would consider them wildly successful if hundreds of people were using it. So even though early investors wouldn't meet with them and they were told they were crazy, here we are 10 years later, and an entire industry category has been born. I actually heard recently about people who are now buying homes on the sole premise of making their mortgage strictly through Airbnb revenue. Crazy idea has now become a revolution, and they're growing into other categories even as we speak. What about Uber? Think about that. Would normal, everyday people be willing to use their own cars to run people and things around town? What about insurance? What about safety issues? Would people get in the car with a perfect stranger and trust them to drive them safely to where they needed to go? And how in the world would you match available drivers and passengers together quickly in a timely way? What would that look like? How would everyone get paid? And how do you begin to get something like this going? Who would finance that crazy idea? And yet, today, Uber, it's one of the most well-known brands, albeit sometimes controversial because of their founders. And they now have a new competitor, which is Lyft, which is growing in many cities. Now, one of my favorites is Waze. Waze is a community-driven GPS navigation app with details along the trip. For example, are there police hidden under the overpass or in the bushes? Are there roadside hazards? Where's the gas at? The whole idea about Waze is that it is updated and fed by the community who uses the app. It's totally awesome. You know, it makes you wonder, how did we ever travel before online maps and navigation? I mean, I remember back in the olden days, and I guess I'm aging myself here, we'd go to AAA and we'd get a map, and then, or you'd buy a road atlas from Walmart. Anybody remember the road atlas? And then we got really sophisticated. We had MapQuest, where you could go online and plot out your path and then print it, take it with you. And then they started putting TomToms and GPSs in the cars. And now we can't live without it. I can't get around town without my online maps. And then there are others. These are people who've disrupted an industry, but there are other people who want to disrupt the entire world. They're not content to simply disrupt an industry. Tesla's Elon Musk, he's planning to colonize distant planets. You might have also heard of Bitcoins. It's an alternate currency that people can buy and sell with. It's been out for a while, but it's becoming very valuable. But you heard it here first, but I'm telling you to keep your eyes on blockchain. It's a technology. It has the potential to disrupt and revolutionize business, commerce, transactions, communications in the same magnitude that the internet did in the 90s. No joke. So keep your eye on that technology. But disruption is not a new phenomenon. It's been happening all throughout human history. We experienced disruption in the 13th and 17th centuries during the Renaissance period. The Renaissance period, people were thinking outside the box left and right in literature, in arts, and science, and medicine, and innovation. But we're definitely living in exciting times now. It is a brave new world. Can you imagine what crazy ideas are yet to come, or more specifically, what crazy ideas are deep inside of you? How could you disrupt your industry for the better? Or at the very least, your company or your department? Do you have an idea? Maybe it's born out of frustration or a dream inside of you that could be the future mother of invention. So how do you get started with disruption? Where does it start? Well, I would submit to you that disruption starts with a question, a challenge. Why? Challenging the status quo. Why are we doing things this way? Why have we always done it this way? Why can't we do it differently? Shouldn't we be able to? Or what would happen if? Or what if? Are we doing things the smartest and most efficient way to get to where we're trying to go? Or should we break the status quo and rethink the whole concept? After all, that's how transportation was disrupted with the motor vehicle. Henry Ford is famously quoted as having said, "If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said they wanted faster horses." Fortunately, he didn't ask first. Steve Jobs got it too. He agreed. He said, a lot of times, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And we found that to be true in our business as well. Even Einstein had the right idea. We can't solve what we used to use. So let's bring it closer to home where you live and work. Take, for example, your sales and marketing. Now, regardless of what you sell, whether it's senior living or healthcare or new homes or residential leasing or products or services or intangible services of any kind, consider what your audience is expecting. Look at the way they interact with you during your sales and marketing experience. Are the old methods that might have worked for years, are they still okay? Are they still relevant, or are they dated? Are prospects and customers and partners, are they still searching and researching and communicating and buying the way they did in years past? Of course not. Today, their expectations are very different than they were even 5 years ago. They're a lot smarter, they're much better informed, They have better access to options, and they're more demanding than ever before in history. In light of that, is the sales experience that you're delivering ripe for disruption? What might be the next evolution for sales and marketing in your market or your company or your communities? Now, these statistics tell a story, and there might be a hint in there. When managers admit that follow-up failure is their number one business issue, that's a clue. And 80% of prospects never receive any type of follow-up. I can personally attest to that one. That problem indicates an opportunity. And then there's that newfangled internet factor. People's expectations for immediate gratification. There's a term called speed to lead, and it's accelerated when online stats show you have to reach out to incoming leads within 5 minutes to reach them. 5 minutes. Responding the next day or even the next hour, that just doesn't cut it. It's no wonder managers have a sense that leads are slipping through the cracks, because they are, especially when we're using antiquated, manual, high-friction systems and tools. Who can possibly keep up? Now, here are some of the questions we've pondered as we've listened to the sales and marketing challenges of our clients. Why? Tell me why it takes so many tools and hoops and gyrations to get the job done and manage sales and marketing processes. Why does sales and marketing need a system for email campaigns, a separate one for marketing automation, another one for website landing pages, another tool for social media, and a separate, I dare say, clumsy CRM that honestly it's no more useful than an electronic Rolodex? And then at the end of the day, they still resort back to paper and sticky notes and manually updated spreadsheets. Shouldn't everything just be in one place and easier to access using their CRM to use it? How much are they costing us? Leveraging the power of the internet for smarter lead generation. And really, we're still copying information out of one tool and pasting it or uploading it into another. So why are we still forced emails to notify people of things, spreadsheets by hand, knowing full well some business intelligence built in to assist us, to flag you, to prompt you, to be of help, assistant? Can't influence what I do next. It's just a big brother tool that will rat on me when I do something wrong or when I don't hit my numbers. What would it look like if we smashed through all of that and we built a brand new paradigm? Well, I submit to you that the disruptive solution would be smart. It would be helpful to the people who have to use it. It would be easy and intuitive. We use the term PhD. PhD stands for push here, dear. It would nudge people to do the right important behaviors that lead to their own success. We call it helping them say yes to their own success by making sure that we do smart follow-up consistently and tenaciously. That's why we coined the term, we recommend you follow up until they buy, cry, or get a restraining order, whichever comes first. We're only half joking. We would be able to use this to help us attract, capture, and engage people on the internet and on our website. You know, Google Analytics are great. They can tell us how many click-throughs we got, but they can't tell us what happens after the click-through. Where are the people in the sales process, and what are our interactions have been, and what are the next steps that we should be doing? We need business intelligence. We need usable reports, not just data that's outdated and won't do anything for us. We can't click through and see where those numbers are coming from. We need a follow-up coach, an assistant, someone who will help us do what we need to be doing. And we need to incorporate all the tools of sales and marketing in a single tool. Instead of having all these disjointed systems that don't talk to each other, that just stress us out, we need one tool that has all the core elements. And of course, we need industry-specific modules to address things like census and property and inventory and available and those kinds of things. And while we're asking for the moon, it would be a real bonus if we could have things like what we call efficiency boosters, things that would just kind of help us, like voice dictation, so we can talk to it to do our searches, or dictate our notes so we don't have to wear our fingers out doing all that typing. Or a live chat so we can communicate with each other in real time. We don't have to run down the hall or make a call or send an email, just chat. Hey, are you available to do a tour in an hour? Social media research, being able to find people on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. An activity feed so we can see kind of like a live news feed of who's doing what in real time. What about a morning assistant that every morning gave us a list of what's on our plate for that day? What do we have going on? What tasks do we need to do? What appointments, so we can be prepared and start thinking about it? App mentions that would send a notification to a coworker when you app mention them. So again, you don't have to stop to call them or email them or go chase them down. You just mention them and it notifies them. What about scheduled reports? Wouldn't it be great if every Monday before your sales meeting, you got an email with that updated report that you use so you can look at it, you can be prepared for it, get it whenever you want. Maybe it goes to your CEO. And what about having that assistant? I really want that assistant who serves you up a menu of follow-up suggestions, kind of cafeteria style that you can choose from. Wouldn't it be great if you had all those things that you needed, including, of course, the access to it from your mobile device? We had a disrupting premise that we live by, which is you can only duplicate your success if you can replicate your process. So I'll tell you our story. Several years ago, we accidentally disrupted the CRM status quo. We didn't mean to. We didn't even know what it was called at that point. We were just trying to solve the problems that we kept hearing over and over again from managers and leaders in sales and marketing and in business. We started off with community developers and builders, and then senior living communities, healthcare, now businesses and organizations across all industries. We reimagined, that's what we called it then, a simple but ingenious system to attract potential prospects and partners, to nurture those budding relationships, to be a virtual assistant to make sure we follow up consistently and flawlessly, and allow us to do research and communicate through the internet, social media, email, all the while providing guides, tracks to run on for our sales team so they know what they need to do next, and full visibility into the metrics and data that make sales successful. We wanted it all in a single, easy-to-use system that's accessible 24/7 online. And since we recognized the significance and the failure of existing follow-up methods, we put special priority and focus and energy on addressing the various types and touch points of follow-up. Starting with a web lead capture, process, and engagement, we created a special solution we call sticky points. Sticky points are just what their name implies. They're a place for people to stick, to get info, to engage with you, to interact with you. They can be used anywhere, like on your website, in your social media, in your online ads. They can be incorporated in your content marketing. They can even be embedded in your outgoing email campaigns. The instant that your prospect clicks through on your sticky point, at whatever time, day or night, whether you're available or sleeping, you get notified, their information gets captured and processed in your system, and they get started on a very personal nurture campaign, and they're tracked through your entire sales process. Before they even leave your site, and definitely before they can forget your name, they start experiencing your high-touch engagement through the magic, of course, of technology. So when you want to stay in front of a prospect or a client or a partner over a period of time, nurture campaigns are the perfect solution. We call them nurture task-o-matics, and they allow you to stay in touch, build brand confidence, disseminate information like testimonials, and stay top-of-mind awareness with your people. They're very personalized, but they're completely automated email sequence. Oftentimes, we're using them when someone watches a video or downloads a resource. You might have experienced that. But sometimes you need more than just an email. Sometimes you want to engage people with different things. Maybe you want to incorporate different types of touches. Maybe you even want to assign the different touches to different people on your team. Workflows task-o-matics are the perfect solution for that. They let you create a sequence of actions, next steps, tasks, whatever you'd like, and then systemize your follow-up, regardless of whether that next step is a call or an email or a printed item, and regardless of who that task is assigned to. The point is, the workflow just happens, and no prospect can get left behind or fall between the cracks. But my favorite personal assistant is our follow-up assistant. So imagine you had a virtual assistant who's always suggesting your next steps for your prospects every day. You pick the milestone that you're going after with your prospect, and your virtual assistant is suggesting specific emails, specific follow-up calls and messages and offers and different resources that you have available to send. Based on your relationship with them and your most recent interactions, you pick the appropriate next steps. So you're in charge. Nothing is forced. But you are always being nudged and always being offered a suggestion to move them to their milestone. It's an assistant. It's constantly serving you a menu of follow-up suggestions designed to help you say yes to your own success. I can tell you that as a company, we will continue to disrupt ourselves year after year. I believe that if you don't disrupt yourself, someone else will. Even as I speak, we're currently pushing the envelopes with some exciting new solutions that have never been done before to take communication and client engagement to the next level. In the 80s and 90s, I learned some painful lessons as I watched some really great companies, really darlings of the industry that have now faded into irrelevance because they didn't disrupt themselves, somebody else did. So I believe if you don't disrupt yourself, someone else will. Which brings me back to you. I want to encourage you today to think of disruption not as an event, not something that happens one day or once in a lifetime, but rather think of it as a way of life. Always be on the lookout for opportunities to reinvent and improve and reimagine yourself. We're so busy, but step back from the hustle and bustle of your busy day's activities and really take an honest look at what's being done. Ask yourself why. Look for opportunities to disrupt. Sometimes those opportunities are disguised as problems or complaints or even threats. But other times, disruption is just a fresh new set of eyes, approach to business as usual. Who knows? You may come up with the next revolution, the next Airbnb that will become a household name. Or, better yet, you may just impact your corner of the world to make the lives of those around you better, easier, and more enjoyable. Now, of course, if you're interested in investigating Advantage to find out if it would help you disrupt or revolutionize your community's sales and marketing processes, we're happy to help you. We're here to guide you. So today I'm going to wrap up with our Internet Whiteboard video. But before I leave you, I want to thank you again for joining me today. I look forward to getting to know you and seeing you on the next webinar. Have a great afternoon.
Meet Andrew. Andrew is in charge of sales and marketing for his company. He's been given a directive to use the internet to generate leads. So Andrew's trying to figure out this whole internet marketing thing. Who the leads are, who's working with them, if they are even being followed up on, where they are in the sales cycle, and, of course, how much each at all and follow up in a timely fashion. Advantage web lead follow-up. Guided by experts, Andrew gets a full internet marketing and lead follow-up plan. Andrew's follow-up means to get his salespeople are noticed and leaders in their sales process and precisely what more missed web leads. His company is so happy they have so many more sales. So what are you waiting for? Contact us and we'll get started on your internet.